the real problem here is there is no real checks and balances. The whole, government is bad, and everything that they do. I mean, listen, I think the federal government is corrupt, but I also believe that corporate special interests have every intention of destroying this planet. They do not care. And a lot of the attitudes, especially of people like the Kochs and what have you, are people that are of a certain age and a certain amount of affluence, where their attitude is, well, if it gets too hot, I'll figure a way out of this. You guys will be screwed, or I'm going to be dead anyway by the time this really becomes a problem, and future generations are going to suffer as a result. So my question to you is, are we getting to the point now where there is going to be a vote of no confidence in the U.S. Economic and political system? Because I think we're getting there, where people just do not trust the system anymore. I'm seeing messages on social media all the time. We should not even be paying taxes anymore. This is insane. I think that's just going to grow more and more exponential as we go forward. Your thoughts on that?
I think that's right. Look, I think the one of the real problems here is the Democratic Party is too weak and too dominated by corporate interests to stand up for the people. And now we're paying the price, because when people don't see an alternative to what's essentially a judicial coup and a right-wing takeover of all three branches of government, when the one party that is supposedly liberal doesn't fight against it hard enough and doesn't, take the most basic positions in favor of working people, we don't have a system in this country where those who are getting screwed over, the majority of people, have a vehicle to express themselves politically, because the two-party system has a stranglehold on politics, and they're both corporate-dominated parties. What we need to do, in my opinion, is form a new party, a labor party. We need a labor party that represents labor interests, green interests, and stop playing the game of constantly voting for a Democratic Party that, in my opinion, has become a handmaiden to this corporate takeover of our country. We just can't do it anymore. Now, I'm not suggesting people don't vote for Biden. I'm not even getting involved in that for this upcoming election. But we must recognize that we are on a fool's errand if we keep voting for a corporate-dominated Democratic Party that fails to address the fundamental problems afflicting our society in an effective way. It does not. And I would argue that's one of the main reasons why this judicial coup, what I call judicial coup, is happened in full force. There's no opposition strong enough to stop it under our current two-party system, and that needs to change.
I definitely agree. That's one of the reasons why this lady is running against Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and as others are, but again, the real problem that we face is that so many of these races become so difficult to, first of all, there is strategy that's involved, but at the same time, it is so expensive to run in these races and to get your message out there. So it's just kind of this, it's this death by 1,000 paper cuts, if you will. And that's just kind of how we've been looking at it for so long.
There's no normal democracy that lets corporations and outside interests spend as much money as they want to either elect or defeat a candidate. Like, look what just happened to Jamal Bowman. I mean, that's not democracy. That's plutocracy. No. That's letting. What's amazing? Like feudalism. It's letting the rich control who gets elected. I mean, that's not democracy.
But one of the real dangers, and this is what you brought up, which is true about the two-party duopoly that we're still stuck in right now, but I think I feel like we're getting to a point where it is turning into a vote of no confidence, and people don't want it anymore. So I think
we could organize a national referendum of no confidence in the U.S. political system, and I bet it would pass. Because that would unite people from across the political spectrum. People are extremely frustrated, and they see what's happening.
And how could you not be? I mean, think about it. Think about what happened to you, but think about what it means for everybody else. And when people think about, well, why are we allowing this to happen? Well, let's see. We've got no health care. We cannot afford and will likely never be able to afford to buy a home, especially if you're a millennial on down. You're not going to be able to have a clean environment because, lo and behold, and when everybody talks about climate change, all I need to tell people is whether you believe it or not, here's who does believe climate change is real. Insurance companies believe it's real, and they are making sure that you can't afford shit. So if you think that it's not real, talk it with them, and then you're wondering, oh my God, I can't afford this. Why can't you? Because sea level rise and heat, all these things matter. And then you factor in clean water and clean air, of which very few have. Flint, Kalamazoo, East Palestine, those are just several of them. hundreds, if not thousands, of examples that exist all over the country that this has become a problem. The scary part is that there is still this tribalism factor that is a problem. So when people were satisfied, let's say those who were living in Westchester County, obviously you're in Manhattan. And so for people that are okay with what just happened out in the burbs, they're okay with it because it happened on their side. Their side, it's okay when their side gets it. But if somebody else's side gets it that they don't agree with, then all of a sudden it's a problem. And so the tribalism factor is still something we have to break through in this country. Any thoughts on how we get past that? Because that is still something that people are really clinging tightly to, is their tribalism in this broken political system we now find ourselves in.
Respectfully, I think the better question to ask is, how do we deal with the divisiveness of extreme wealth and income inequality? That's where the tribalism comes in. The wealthy and the privileged don't want to give anything up. They don't want to spread the money around. No wealthy society in the world is structured like ours. Everyone else has a proper tax rate, health care that's available to everyone, solid public education. You couldn't design a worse wealthy society in the world than what exists right now in the United States. It's just unbelievable. So I think that the lack of unity is by design. I think the entities that benefit from the divisiveness, from the tribalism, foment it through control of the media and through the way they do business. These Supreme Court decisions in the last few days are a perfect example of that. They're completely divisive. They are not trying to bring the country together. They're almost happy and delighted to divide it. And they're like, we have the power. The message of the Supreme Court and this whole right-wing funding network is, sorry, Americans, you don't like it? F you, we have the power, and there's nothing you can do about it. There used to be a time when I was your age, okay, they tried to hide it. There was this facade of the rule of law. At this point, they just don't even try to hide it. People are onto them. They're like, we have the power. It's in the open. There ain't nothing you can do about it. We control the police. We control the military. We control the Congress. We control the Supreme Court. We control most of the rest of the federal courts. And, we usually control the executive branch. Even when a Democrat is in, Biden is so beholden, for example, to the fossil fuel industry that he's allowed, more oil and gas leases on federal lands than even Trump did. So even the Democrats are so kind of beholden to fossil fuel interests that they have a really hard time dealing with climate change issues in a deep kind of way. So we don't have an alternative. We have sort of two main political parties that are both very dominated by corporate interests, one of which is pretty much completely controlled and owned by corporate interests. The other is heavily influenced by them. And that's too narrow a choice. We need a different kind of political vehicle. We need a labor party in this country. We need new leadership, and we need rules so a third party or a fourth party or a fifth party can get on the debate stage during presidential elections and can get financing to compete in these elections. So those ideas, creative ideas, ideas that are viable, can be put into the conversation and covered by the media. But like right now, it's not happening. Damn, you saw the debate last week. Wow. Where was RFK Jr.? Where was Marianne Williamson? Where was Cornel West? Where was Jill Stein? Okay, I don't care what you think of any of those people. The reality is they all have ideas that are creative, interesting, innovative, that neither Biden or Trump would ever put out there. Okay, so why is CNN conspiring with the two major corporate dominated political parties to prevent people from participating in a national televised debate, that like the one we saw last week? And it's obvious, they all benefit from the same closed system. And it's, in my opinion, it's completely undermining the rule of law and democracy, and is on the verge of really ruining this country. Look, we have a lot of problems, man. I'm not like thinking this is a great country. Over the course of my lifetime, it's gotten a lot worse compared to what I felt it was when I got out of law school, say in the early 90s. But like, we have to recognize this. We're in serious, serious trouble right now.
I definitely agree. We are in serious trouble right now, but I think because most people, I think, are recognizing that we're in serious trouble is usually when action is going to be taken.
I agree.
And so,
and that something good can come of this because, why pretend anymore? Let people see it for what it is. Yeah.
And I got to tell you, I actually like this idea. And we can close on this note. I actually like this idea of the Democrats continuing to go with Biden, because the more people see what a faux system this really is now, you claim that Donald Trump is the end-all be-all of existential threats, that he is the second coming of Hitler, Mussolini, whatever. Our democracy, we're not a democracy, is hanging in the balance, but let's just assume that it actually exists. If that were the case, and you saw what happened in the debate the other night, that wasn't a bad debate. That may have been historically the worst that's ever existed in presidential politics. And so the attitude, despite the fact that everyone came out and said, Joe's got to go, this is not acceptable, we got to at least make an effort to win, even if Trump gets in. I even said the other day, listen, Trump is likely to get in again, but at least make him earn it. You are literally handing this over to him. So my thought is, if they're going to continue with Biden, they are facilitating this. You want to call it a revolution? Call it whatever you want. Some people don't like the R word, but to me, if we're going to get to a point where people are finally going to take action, they are going to, as a collective, we're going to need to look at this and say, I ain't doing this anymore. This can't be the way it has to be. It can definitely be better. Don't expect me to support this anymore. I'm not doing it. I think by Biden coming out today saying we're staying in the race, okay, watch them circle the wagons and everyone pointing to them saying you're all a bunch of frauds. You don't believe in anything. You're bought by the system. We've had enough of it.